Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Welcome to USA Prepares. This is your captain speaking, John Regan. If you've listened at all during the past 2 days, you know that I'm sitting in for Vincent as he does some farming chores. And believe me, I'm so looking forward to his return, which is expected to be on Monday. And this is February 14th, which means that it's Microsoft Update Day. Don't forget to keep your computers updated. And with us this morning, we have Guineith with an Australia update. Good morning, or whatever time it is there, Guineith.
The morning here. How are you, John Regan?
I'm doing good.
That's good. You know something? This Oroville Dam situation is quite something, isn't it?
It's amazing, and you know, you read the state of California has known that the dam has had problems for 12 years and done nothing.
That's right. And it's a sinkhole in the spillway. Okay? And Cliff High has been on about the, problems that sinkholes would cause to infrastructure for how long? Since 2002, 2003 or something? Which is like ages ago. It's just absolutely, I just shake my head. This dam could still collapse, okay? When I was, I actually trained as an environmental scientist from the University of Melbourne, which in Australia is like the closest Australia comes to somewhere like Harvard, okay? I trained with some of the top environmental scientists and geologists in the country. And do you know something? One area that I particularly loved and enjoyed was catchment management. And a big part of that is how dams operate. And in my everyday life here on the farm, dams are a big part of the infrastructure around here. And since I've moved here, I've gotten quite a bit of experience on how dams operate in the real world, including that we actually had floods last year, and I have the dams that I have on a smaller scale, very much like the Oroville Dam, okay? The only thing is that instead of like being 700 feet high, my dams might be 7, 8, or 9 feet high. But exactly the same construction on a smaller scale. And last year we I would say I had a sleepless night or two on one particular dam, but I managed to save it. Now, what I did with that dam was I basically put logs across the gap where the water was wanting to flow through. and erode down into the valley and get rid of the main dam, okay? You can't do that here. The most pathetic thing of all that I saw was them saying, oh, we've chucked some rocks into the hole and now it's all okay because the hole's been filled. And I heard that. I didn't even have to look. I just bowed my head, covered my face, and I went, oh, no. You really think so? The scale of this thing is monumental, okay? It's the tallest dam in the country. And even if you got, what's the max? I don't know. You're somebody who has more to do with aeronautics than what I do. And being in the military, although this would be with helicopters, not with fighter jets, but what would be the maximum tonnage of rock that a helicopter could lift?
I'm not sure, but it's, in comparison to what we're talking about, it's kind of like a grain of sand, on a beach,
Yeah, that's exactly right. You would and for them to say, oh, we've plugged some rocks into the hole and now everything's going to be okay. And I'm recalling the size of the flow of water. It's like saying that we've put a rock on the top of Niagara Falls and now it's okay. That is the magnitude of water flow that we are looking at here. You can't stop Niagara Falls. And this is, from the look of it, something of the equivalent flow, pressure, etc. And Niagara Falls is eating into its rock bed. And that's, solid granite. And it's eating it back something like about a metre a year. Something like that. I forget the exact figures. But, you can't stop the power of this sort of magnitude of water. Okay? Now, the only thing that is stopping that spillway from eating into the dam itself is the actual concrete foundation at the head of the spillway. Okay? And I really hope and pray to God that somebody, when they were building that dam, thought to dig down to the bedrock before they put that foundation in. I really pray to God that somebody thought to do that but I was looking at the photo and I noticed that foundation at the head of the spillway is actually starting to lean somewhat. And I don't like that. I don't like it at all because as soon as that concrete that concrete head of the spillway, that's the official proper spillway, as soon as that gets washed away, and it will, sooner or later, you can kiss goodbye to the rest of the dam within 24 to 48 hours and probably a lot sooner. You could see the whole thing wiped out within minutes because it's only earth. And, it's... I would definitely not be anywhere downstream of Oroville, even going all the way down to Sacramento right now, because there's over 1 trillion litres of water in that dam, okay? That's a lot of water. And, 770 feet tall means 770 feet deep. And if that dam gets washed away in a matter of minutes, you are looking at one of the biggest catastrophes that this country has ever seen, okay? So if you haven't already gotten out of there, and the most ridiculous thing of all is watching the schlebs in charge and their response, okay, of telling everybody that everything's fine, you don't have to go anywhere, just stay in place, it'll all be okay. When blind Freddy, as they say in this country, could see that everything is not okay. Okay? that we are looking still potentially at a major catastrophe here. A major catastrophe. We're talking about a wave of water that could wipe out Sacramento, okay? And all it takes is for one or two cars to break down on that stupid freeway heading out of town to block up all the rest of the line of the ants heading out to wherever they're going. That's one car with mechanical problems, one car that runs out of fuel, one car that has a flat battery from, whatever the heater or whatever being, draining the battery too much or because they haven't maintained their car properly. And you have got how many thousands of people stuck in their cars as a massive wall of water rolls down the valley?
Oh, I read they were trying to evacuate 200,000 people in an hour. Is it incompetence or stupidity?
I'm lost for words. I really, truly am. Mate, if I had seen that thing on the internet, and congratulations to Paul Begley, it was him that really raised the red flags on this one. And it was because of his reports that I heard about this. And, it's in one way, I am a Christian lady, and normally I would be praying for God's effects to be protecting people and mitigating the effects of any, bad that could happen in a situation like this. But these people, I'm just saying, God, this is in your hands. This one's in your hands. Because these people I think Alex Jones has a phrase, social justice warrior morons, or something like this. And we're talking about the whole state.
This is John Regan with Guineith Isaacs. We'll be back after this break. John Regan with Guineith Isaacs. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago that I was talking about preparedness and dams. Because if you're looking for property or if you're where you're expecting to be when things happen, have you gone to the maps and seen where dams are that are upstream from you? Because, this can be an issue, and if we're in that situation where good communication's no longer there, it would be a surprise as well, not giving you a chance to get out of the way of a wall of water. And, long term, eventually a dam is going to fail. It could be many years down the road, could be a few years. Just when you start not doing maintenance on things after a collapse of the economy, that will affect the lifespan of the dam. But beyond that, there's the military aspect. If we get into a war, certain, at least you would think major dams would be a target, which would then have devastating effects. And again, if it happens during that type of attack, there's no chance of ordering an evacuation because you don't know until after it happens. Guineith?
Yeah. The other thing that concerns me, I don't know that area of Northern California too well, except that we just about, I think, spent a whole semester studying Enron. That was before it collapsed. And that was quite a few years before it collapsed, but it was the case study of an electricity supplier that's on the rocks. And I don't know if there's any nuclear power stations in that particular catchment area, but given the obsession for that Californians have for so-called clean and green energy, which we all know in the government so-called definition includes nuclear power, it wouldn't surprise me if there were nuclear reactors in that valley. And if there are, we are looking at a catastrophe of monumental proportions on the scale of Fukushima, because a 700-foot high wall of water, or even, like, let's be conservative, 200 or 300 foot high wall of water rolling down onto a nuclear power plant is really going to ruin everybody's day, isn't it?
And if we remember what happened with Fukushima, it wasn't the earthquake itself, it was the generators getting taken out by the water.
Yeah, that's right. And if you think that with this, when you have this sort of dam collapse, that dam is made of basically compressed earth, and that compressed earth has to go somewhere. Okay? And I can tell you where it's going to go. It's going to coat the valley below it, okay, including any nuclear reactors that it happens to come across, in many, 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 many feet of earth. And it is going to be impossible even to see where the nuclear reactor was, let alone try and do anything to stop it from melting down. That's what we're looking at here. And that, I had a look, and because I remembered, there was a guy on YouTube who was, he was saying something about he would analyze pictures and see and predict events based on those pictures, and it seemed a bit outlandish, except for the fact that the things that he was predicting were starting to happen. And I just forget his name, but he said that one place that is going to have problems is the San Onofre nuclear facility, and I went and had a look, and I found that that's not in the Sacramento Valley catchment, fortunately, but there's probably some other nuclear reactors up there, and that's going to be a real worry.
After the show today, I'll put that on my list to check out nuclear reactors near there. This is John Regan with Guineith Isaacs. We'll be back after this bottom of the hour break. And this is John Regan sitting in for Vincent today. Have Guineith Isaacs with us. And if this dam in California collapses, it's probably going to be the most expensive disaster we've had. And I heard somebody talk about how this could cause the economy to collapse because of all the insurance claims. Well, it can cause some problems, but it wouldn't be from insurance claims, because I would dare say few, if any, people in that area have flood insurance. And unless you have flood insurance, you're not covered. Your homeowners doesn't count. So you would be left with your mortgage intact, which would lead to a bunch of bankruptcies, and those at least billions of dollars of mortgages for that area would basically be worthless. So whoever holds those mortgages would be in bad shape, and we'd have to see how that would play out throughout the economy. But no matter how you look at this, if that dam goes, it's not good, and we've got 2 more rounds of rain coming.
You know something? I would say that this is already one of the most expensive, probably infrastructure damage events that the United States has ever faced. Because if you look at that spillway, okay, it has to be repaired. It's lost 80 feet of level off the top of the spillway. That was just at least 80 feet, okay? And I'm just going by, a mud map estimate. And it doesn't actually look that much, but if you look at the photo of before and after and notice the level of the spillway, you can visibly see that about 80 or 90 feet of earth is gone, will have to be replaced for the dam to become functional again, okay? And the stretch of, spillway that needs to have 80 or 90 feet of rocks or whatever put there is several miles. I would say it's probably at least 2 miles long. So you're looking at an 80 or 90 foot high wall of rock which is 2 miles long that will have to be constructed and concrete put in there as well, so that the next time it overtops, because there will be a next time, even if it's in 60 years' time, and this time, let's remember the rebar, because I'm sure that somebody forgot the rebar when they fixed that hole back in 2006. And that's like, probably if I was Homer Simpson, I would say something like, "Dole."
And these type of construction repairs would take time. You think about just plain old road construction, how long that takes. And you're going to be moving a lot of earth to take care of this dam.
That's for sure. And you're talking about already a repair bill into the billions of dollars just to repair the spillway, okay? And years of construction even if the dam survives, okay? And then you've got to pray that, because with that volume of concrete, it will take probably 2 or 3 years to cure properly, okay? When you repair the spillway wall. You've got to pray to God that you don't get another full flood before that concrete has cured properly. Because otherwise you really are in big, big trouble, okay? Because the pressure behind that wall is absolutely gobsmacking. You're looking at, you know how much one full IBC cube is, right? How heavy it is. And that's just one. If you could imagine around about, oh gosh, how much did they say? 4,000, how much was it? 4 billion 4 million or 4 billion or whatever they said it was, IBC cubes of water pressing against this dam wall, that you have just constructed to repair the spillway. And you have to repair the spillway because it's going to continue washing away that section of hillside. And water is very, very stubborn. It will find its way through, okay? Even if you get down to the bedrock, there's tiny fissures in the bedrock, okay? And like I say, the Niagara Falls is something of this sort of magnitude of the water that was flowing at full volume. And that is eroding solid bedrock backwards every single year. And it's, if you've never studied this of the force and the power of water, you really need to go and study it. And if you are going to build this sort of dam, from what I'm looking at, I don't think that they built a slope backwards onto the dam when they first built it. Okay? You've got to have a slope of soil going backwards from the actual dam site, okay, probably at around about a 30 to 40 degree angle at the most, okay? Maybe you could get away with 45, but you can't get away with much more than 45. That helps to stop the water from exerting so much pressure on the wall, okay? Because the water pressure is not getting pushed against the solid face, it's getting applied upwards. Does that make sense to you, John Regan?
Yes, it does.
And it's impossible to tell, but I think that they've put the slope in the other direction, and ideally you should have the slopes in both directions. That's the strongest of all, because of course triangulation, okay, this is engineering 101, anything built with triangles is going to be really, really durable, okay? So if you've got a triangle going backwards into the water and a triangle going forwards down the downstream side of the dam, that's going to be the strongest dam of all. And I really hope and pray to God that they have actually, but even if they have, once that concrete foundation of that spillway goes, it's going to be impossible to save the main dam. And it will go within minutes to hours. It's really, truly scary. It really is. And I shake my head. I'm doing face plants just looking at it every single day with the updates, you know, on YouTube that I'm watching. And anyone who thinks that it's all over needs to get their head read, because it's not all over, and it's probably only just begun. Even if we survive this thing, even if you survive the storms that are coming, okay, you've got a compromised dam. Just upstream, and you mentioned real estate values. Isn't Northern California one of the most expensive real estate areas in the whole country?
Or as I'd put it, one of the biggest bubbles, yes.
It's one of the biggest bubbles. Probably only exceeded by Southern California, which is just madness down there. But yeah, that's where all the millionaires and billionaires live on the weekends, apparently. They all have their places up in Northern California, where the climate is a bit milder, and, you know, where they can easily, when there's snow on the Sierra Nevada, that is, where they can go skiing if their heart so takes it. But like I say, the consequences of this, it could have all been prevented with proper maintenance of the dam, okay? Like I say, something as simple as remembering to put rebar down the hole when you do the dam repairs, okay? How much would that quantity of rebar cost? Maybe a few $1,000s, okay? And this is all happening because somebody didn't think to put a couple of $1,000s worth of rebar down the hole, even if it cost $10, $20, $30, $40, $50,000. What, you mean you're going to wipe out the city of Sacramento because you couldn't put $50,000 worth of rebar down a hole? You know, it's just gobsmackingly selfish, stupid, and like I said, words fail me.
Well, you know, there's more important things to do, like complain about Trump.
Yeah, that's been a laugh, and that's like I say, what's making me say, well, maybe this is karma, and I hate to say it, but Mark Dice is, you know, he goes there and 90% of the people want for Goebbels to do things like be the Secretary of State.
This is John Regan with Guineith Isaacs. We'll be back after this break. This is John Regan with Guineith Isaacs. So this has been a pretty quick hour, kind of like water flowing downhill. Sorry for the pun there. I just want to pile on a little bit. I've been following the drought in California, and up until a few weeks ago, I had the link on my weekly post to the drought map. But with all the rain, I ended up taking that off. And while I'm not a geologist, I do know one thing. When you add that amount of water in that short a time, that's a lot of weight. And of course, California has faults, and we also don't know how much of that water is making it underground that might help lubricate those faults. And when you look at the earthquakes have been going around the Ring of Fire, it's been the west coast of the United States that has not had anything of significance. And you put those factors together and a weakened dam, and you could be playing with fire there.
Yep, absolutely. And not only that, you say, well, that's Northern California. That means that their great god temple of Hollywood remains intact. Well, not quite, because doesn't the Oroville Dam supply a lot of the drinking water for that infestation called Los Angeles?
I wouldn't be surprised if it does.
I remember reading somewhere that it did, and that the people there, as far as I can see, have a pretty low level of self-sufficiency, and many of them, many of the ordinary people, there's a lot of very wealthy people in LA, but there's also some of the most tremendous poverty that you'll ever see in the United States. And these people are living on food stamps, probably about 9/10 of the population or whatever, is really, really struggling in LA. And it's only a small proportion of them who are involved in the entertainment industry that are actually making decent money. And the rest are, really, really battling from what I can see. And, you say, well, we're just going to take away all your drinking water because we can't do it anymore because the Oroville Dam collapsed. They're not even going to comprehend, okay, because they're so dumbed down, they're just going to riot. And do you know something? I don't know how many people in the class remember the LA riots of the 1980s, and that was caused by a blackout, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
That's just, the light switch won't work. What are we going to do? I'm terribly sorry, but, this is a lot bigger than the light switch is not working, and back in the day, they didn't have, that was before the internet, okay? The people actually were out and about a lot more. I remember the days before the internet. I'm not that old, but I had the first part of my adult life in my early 20s, before the internet took off. And I remember those times. And people were out and about. They actually talked to one another, But back in the day, there was a massive power outage, and the whole city responded with just a massive riot. And I'm going, oh no, if their water goes away, their electricity goes away at the same time, that place is going to implode.
Even worse, the cell towers are gone.
Oh yeah, no more internet. We can't tweet anyone. The world has ended because we can't tweet anyone.
Now, Guineith, thank you for being with us today.
Okay. Have a good day, won't you?
You too. We'll be back after this top of the hour break. Welcome back to hour number 2 of USA Prepares. This is your captain, John Regan, sitting in for Vincent while he's taking care of his farming chores. Oh, you may want to fasten your seatbelt. I got a feeling this is going to be a really exciting hour. I'm pleased to present someone who's going to be in Dallas for the Hear the Watchman Conference, and that's March 31st through April 2nd. Pastor Carl Gallups is senior pastor of Hickory Hammock Baptist Church. He's authored several books, is a radio host, and we could probably take the whole hour just going over his bio. But I know he's got so much more to talk about, so Pastor Gallups, welcome to USA Prepares.
John Regan, thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for your kind introduction. Man, it's an honor to be here with you.
It's a pleasure. And there's just so much going on in the world today. We just spent an hour talking about the dam in California, and that's almost minor in comparison with other things we see going on. Your newest book is When the Lion Roars, understanding the implications of ancient prophecies for our times. Yeah. And boy, do we see that over and over and over.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, John. And listen, you know, thank you for having me on, and thank you for mentioning the book. I want your audience to know I'm not here to sell a book, but I appreciate you mentioning it because I'm going to say a lot of shocking things probably in this interview, and I just want folks to know that everything that I'm going to say is documented in that book. And that's the only time I'm going to mention the book again. But yeah, When the Lion Roars, and it's a Amazon #1 bestseller in multiple categories. It's still going crazy, and the reason is there's no. I don't deal with eschatological schemes. It doesn't matter if you're pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib. I don't get into all of that. What I do is I just say, this book is like no other prophecy book on the market, because what I do is I say, look, it's not even been 70 years since Israel's been back in the land. So let's just look at those less than 70 years, and let's watch what happened to this world. We went from black and white grainy TV that not even everybody even had in their homes back in 1948 to this ubiquitous presence of mind-blowing science fiction technology that's all around us, from mixing pigs and humans to genetic splicing, to sex robots, to internet, cell phones that connect all over the world, instantaneous translation, communications on the, it just goes on and on and on. And I said, let's just take a look at these little handful of decades and watch the explosion of prophetic occurrences and then line those up with what the Word of God clearly says. And so the book has 35 chapters. Each chapter is only about 6 or 7 pages long. It's quick. It's like eating a bag of potato chips. It's snappy. I just take stuff right out of the headlines, go straight to the scriptures, do deep contextual studies, and it's all documented. And the premise of the book is this. We are living in the most profoundly prophetic times, John, since the first coming of Jesus Christ. I mean, it is astounding what is happening in this world around us. And I mean, brother, since the return of Israel, which I believe is the starting clock of the last days, and when I say last days, I'm not a date setter, and I don't even pretend or try or even wink come close to that. I just say, look, we're very, very close either to the rapture of the church and or the return of Jesus Christ. Maybe in our generation, maybe the next generation, but the bottom line is, ever since Israel returned, the clock has started ticking, and that's where we are. That's the foundation of life today, and we're watching it unfold right before our eyes, even here in America, even with this last election, John.
Yeah, I'm going to be in Matthew 24 quite a bit when the conference comes up. Mm-hmm. And every generation has thought that it was the last generation ever since Jesus was here.
Yeah, I deal with that in the book, yeah.
And I'm going to cover some things that, even if you're a devout atheist, there's so many things, both financially and physically, that would have to change, that we have no solutions for life to continue as we know it. And I'm hoping that that will encourage some of our brothers and sisters to actually get off their butts and start being Christians.
Yeah, me too. Well, and that's that's why I do what I do. I mean, look. I've been in the ministry for a little over 30 years. I've been the senior pastor of one church here on the Gulf Coast for 30 years. Just, in fact, in 2 weeks from now, it'll be 30 years that I've been in one church. Prior to that, I spent 10 years in Florida law enforcement, and some of that was doing investigations as well. So 40 years of life experience dealing at the deep, dark hurts and disasters and devastations of people's lives, and law enforcement and all that entails, ministry and all that entails, traveling the world, being on different continents, preaching and teaching, ministering to people, 40 years of my life. And so, I mean, I'm finally getting a grasp on this, John. I'm finally understanding where we are, and I'm watching this stuff, and that's my ministry is devoted to trying to wake people up. And I'm not an alarmist. Hey, I'm very positive. I love life. People that's why I've been able to stay in one place for 30 years. People know I'm not a nut job. I'm not a sensationalist. I'm not an alarmist. But I see what's happening. I'm a sober-minded, investigative, and I'm in media a lot too, so kind of a journalist. That's how I approach life and the scriptures. And just because the scripture says a certain thing doesn't mean that I'm just going to say, oh well, okay, then here it is in the headline, so this must be that. No, I research the thing out. And I go back and I dig and I do my due diligence contextually as well as historically, and so. But the point is, there are dozens. Yes, I said dozens with an S of either direct, huge prophetic occurrences that are going on right before our eyes, and we're the first generation since Jesus Christ came. We're the first generation in history to see these things happening. They're either direct or they're indirect, but they're deeply connected to direct prophecy. And that's where we are. I mean, let me just off the top of my head, all right, so Israel comes back. Well, that's a direct prophecy of Ezekiel 37, for example. The valley of the dry bones in the last days, it'll come back, it'll be united, it won't be divided anymore, it'll be in the land, boom, there it is. But Ezekiel 38 says, but after it comes back, after it's established, after it's secure in the land, and by the way, Israel's the number one superpower of the Middle East, there it sits, secure in that sense. It says after that, there will be a coalition of nations that will form up for the first time in history. They will begin to form up, and it will eventually be for the purpose of attacking Israel, to try to destroy it and wipe it off the face of the earth. Well, before that coalition of nations could come about, John, first, there had to be an Israel back in the land. Well, boom, 1948, that happened. Here we are, less than 70 years later, and lo and behold, the coalition of Ezekiel 38, which even Orthodox Jewish rabbis who deny Jesus Christ, they're familiar, of course, with the Old Testament prophecies. They're familiar with Ezekiel 38. Even they are now proclaiming in the media, oh my gosh, Ezekiel 38 is happening right before our eyes. And what is Ezekiel 38? What does it say? Well, the main feature, it talks about how Magog and Persia will join together, and these two entities, nationalistic entities, will drag along all of these other nations with them. And the nations' names are tribal names, Beth Togarmah, et cetera, and those come out of the Table of Nations, Genesis chapter 10, and they're all tied to nations of the Middle East and or Turkey and or some of the Stan nations and or Russia, and it says very clearly Persia and Magog will kind of start all of this. Well, Persia is Iran. Until 1935, all the maps and history books listed that area as Persia. Now it's called Iran, coming from an ancient language in that area. And so it was renamed. Speaking of it, it signifies the Aryan race, which they connect themselves to. They're not Arabs, they're Aryans, and they're Persians. And so they changed the name to Iran. Well, who's Magog? Well, Bible scholars debate that topic, and most of them have said for decades and decades and decades that they believe that was corresponding with Russia because of the tribal name. Now some scholars are saying, you know what, Turkey's probably involved in this too, because the Russians and the Turkic people are all related. Chinese, Russian, Turkic people, they're deeply, deeply related genetically. And so now we're watching Russia and Turkey in their alliance finaglings. We're watching Turkey implode into an Islamic caliphate under what's his name? His name has escaped me. The president there, Erdogan, Recep Erdogan. And so we're watching that happen. Now we're watching Russia with a military presence in Syria, aligning with Iran in deep contractual negotiations. Then China comes to the Middle East, putting a military base on the eastern coast of Africa, just miles from our largest military base in the area. They supply troops by the thousands to Russia into Syria. And of course, Syria is a huge prophetic nation in the Bible. And here's Russia and China with military troops in Syria. Syria has imploded into an irreconcilable civil war. The Middle East has imploded with Arab Spring. And we're watching the Middle East on fire. And I hear the music, so I know we got to take a break. But I'm just saying, man, I mean, we're the first generation of history to see this.
This is John Regan with Carl Gallups. We'll be back in a few minutes. This is John Regan, Pastor Carl Gallups, and I spent 8.5 years as an Air Force officer out of college. 3 of those years I lived in Germany, and the last 2.5 I was at the Pentagon working on the nuclear planning system. So I've got a bit of understanding of some of the weapons that would be involved, and I've been watching Russia and China with these new hypersonic weapons that are real game changers, because before that you had ballistic missiles, and what ballistic means is it's like a bullet. You fire it, and based on wind and gravity, you know what it's going to do. These new vehicles can change direction, so all of the anti-missile missiles that we do have that don't even work all that well are useless against these new weapons. So it'd be interesting if things go hot right now. Yeah.
No, John, listen, I do appreciate your expertise and your service to our nation, and you're absolutely right. I've researched those things as well, but of course you speak of your first-hand knowledge. But you're right. I mean, again, it goes to the burgeoning curve of the exponential growth of technology, and I write about that a lot in my book. I speak and preach to this. It's mind-boggling. It's mind-blowing. Most of the church just doesn't understand this. They just don't get it. What's really going on, which is why so much of my life is dedicated to helping the church to get it. A lot of pastors don't get this. Most of American citizens just don't understand what you just said, that what's happening in the world of technology, and particularly as it relates to warfare, it was science fiction just a decade ago, much less 2,000 years ago when the Bible wrote about these things. Oh, it might not have mentioned ballistic missiles or hypersonic, but the description of what it speaks of and suggests, and the times. I mean, the technology that's mentioned in the Bible, John, I mean, just the words, the whole world will see something at once. The whole world will be forced to take a mark. The whole world will worship this one leader. And the image, there will be an image created that will be caused to live and breathe. The image will come to life. Miracles, fire will be called down from heaven. I mean, good gosh, 2,000 years ago, when John wrote those words, and those are just his words, that's not even counting the words of Daniel, and speaking of the exponential growth in transportation information technologies in Daniel chapter 12, when John wrote those words just 2,000 years ago, they were complete science fiction. The things he describes, the things that he saw, the technology that he describes. Yet, when we read those words, when I said the whole world will see it at once, immediately everybody said, well, that's no big deal. We can see everything at once on our cell phone now, much less on television. We used to say TV, but and then we said, oh, no, well, it's satellite radio. Now it's cable TV. No, cable TV. What? Now we've got satellite TV. No, we don't even need that. Now we've got internet. Well, that's not a big deal because now we walk around with it in our hands, John. In our hands. We can watch TV, video, radio, everything. So we're watching this happen before our eyes. When I talk about one world, that the Bible said everybody will be forced to take a mark. Well, John, I have all of this heavily documented in my book. People can read it with their own eyes. I'm sure you're aware of the UN 2030 agenda and the section of it that speaks of, they openly brag that they are going to, quote, identify every human being on the planet with a biometric marking system. These are their words, for the purpose of peace and security and safety. Well, those words come right out of the Bible. Well, how are they going to do it? They said they're going to do it by the year 2030. Well, that's a dozen years from now. But for people who are listening that are thinking, well, but so they're just bragging about it. Okay, but consider this. This is the first time in human history that we've had the technology to actually pull it off, and now we've got a globalist organization declaring they're going to do it, and they've even named the tech companies, and those tech companies on their websites are openly bragging about it, John.
And that 2030 date is for the outlying third world nations.
That's right. It's already going on right now in the first world nation. Already.
And we'll be back after the bottom of the hour break. This is John Regan with Carl Gallups. Before we lose all the time here, I do want to mention a few websites. And the Watchman Conference coming up here in Dallas, March 31st through April 2nd. That website is hearthewatchmen.com. You can also get the link from my website, thefinancialstateoftheunion.com. Just click on the news tab, and it's the top link on every post for at least the last couple of months. They just recently got a new block of hotel rooms, so don't put it off. It's just a month and a half away, which is nothing, and you really don't want to miss out being there. I know you've got some websites. You have carlgallups.com, CARLGALLUPS. And let's see if I can do this in one breath, short for preaching the precious salvation of Jesus in many countries, many ways, thus obliterating our nemesis, Satan and his kingdom, which short is PPSIMMONS, ppsimmons.com.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's anything else you want to cover.
Yeah. And we've shortened it. It's a big network now. It's called the PNN News and Ministry Network, PP Simmons News and Ministry Network. Yeah, but the bottom line, everybody can go to my main website, carlgallups.com. It's very easy to remember if you can remember my name, carlgallups.com. And from there, you can find out everything about the church that I pastor, the radio program that I host. I've been doing it for 15 years. To watch me on TV, all my books, thousands of videos that I've made, ministry articles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm in the media a lot, so a lot of that media presentation is there, written media, TV, radio, et cetera, at carlgallups.com. And again, if you want to get any of my books, just go there or to amazon.com and put my name in, and I've got an author page there. And so anyway, I'm easy to find, carlgallups.com. Thanks, John.
You're welcome. It was 1982 when I landed in Germany and went through what then was called NBC, Nuclear, Biological, and Chemical Warfare Training. And after that training, that sent me back to my Bible to read the book of Revelation for the second time. And it's like you say, they didn't call it the same thing because certain things didn't exist back then. Right. But that's what really set me off on my personal preparedness endeavors.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And the book that I wrote just before this is called Be Thou Prepared, Equipping the Church for Times of Persecution and Trouble. And it speaks of the biblical truths of preparedness and the biblical, from the early church all the way up to today, and then practical application of that today in the Christian life and in church life and in family life. But anyway, again, I'm just not trying to advertise a book. I'm just agreeing with you that, that needs to be a big part of God's people's lives and the church as well. We need to be prepared to minister to those around us as calamities and disasters befall the world, which those have always been around. But the Bible says in the last days, in these prophetic times, that those kinds of things will become more frequent. And, not only more frequent, John, but also we just have more people living in the world now. And, 7-point-something billion people, and the vast majority of those live near earthquake zones or water areas like, oceans and tsunamis and hurricanes, or in tornado alley zones around the world, and volcanoes, and so anyway, those kinds of things have always befallen the planet, but the Bible's clear that in the last days those kinds of natural phenomena and disasters will begin to increase as well. And the church needs to be prepared to minister, regardless of when the rapture is and all of those things. I get it. It kills me when I hear Christians saying, well, I don't have to prepare because the Lord's just going to take care of me. And my answer to that is, look, I get it. Listen, we got to walk by faith. I get it. You can store up a barn full of stuff and the barn can burn down. During a disaster. I get that. But the bottom line is to say, I'm just going to let the Lord handle it for me because I've got more faith than you. My response is, well, quit going to the grocery store then. What are you doing when you go grocery shopping? You're prepping. You're storing up. Quit paying insurance bills. Why do you even have insurance? Why don't you just, by faith, just let God provide that for you? Why do you buckle up your seatbelt? Why do you wear a helmet when you ride a motorcycle? Why? Why do you have fire extinguishers? Why do you have locks on your doors? Why do you take the keys out of your car? What are you doing? You're prepping, So I just tell Christians, look, just be reasonable about this. You don't have to go live in the woods under a log and eat grubs from under a tree, but you might have to one day. But in the meantime, I tell Christians, use your head, get prepared. We're living in prophetic times. You need to be prepared, not just to take care of yourself and your family, but also that's a good way to minister, to reach out to others in the name of Jesus Christ, John, is when things get tough. The people who aren't prepared have they're much more prone to listen to those of us who are prepared in those times, don't you think?
I would hope so. And, just to relate, I've been talking about this. I've been public for over 5 years now. And I find out, the people on the left have such faith in government and technology that they think that's going to take care of them. And then, you get the Christians, like you say, I don't have to worry because I'm going to be raptured out of here. Well, let's just give you the pre-trib doctrine. But how are you so sure that that's going to happen before the financial collapse of the United States?
Well, there you go. Yeah. No, that's right. And that's what I tell people. Look, I'm not stomping on anybody's eschatology. Eschatology is going to take care of itself. It could be we're all wrong about the timing of the rapture, etc. So, I've got my passionate beliefs about it, but I don't break fellowship with people over that. But what I tell Christians is just what you said. Regardless of when eschatology literally and finally plays out, you can't tell me that this earth, even if we're still here before the rapture during certain times, you can't tell me that this earth is not in turmoil and that we should not be prepared. You're talking about even the left. I don't know if you saw this or not, but I've spoken to this several times in the last couple of weeks. There was a huge article in the UK Daily Mail and it is, let me see. Here it is right here. It's called Apocalypse Island. Tech billionaires are building hideaways in New Zealand. Now listen to this, John, and your audience. I'm not going to read the article to you guys. I'm not going to bore you like that. But here's the gist of the article. The article brags about how technology billionaires, and it goes on to name some of these areas and where they come from. They're all liberals. And not all technology billionaires are liberal, but I mean, this article is making it clear. These are liberal people of the liberal persuasion. They, by the dozens, have gone to New Zealand. Listen to this, John. They've literally dug holes in the ground and in the mountains and in the caves to hide themselves in during time of world calamity. And they've got it stocked with ammunition and food and all these things, and they're doing this article, and guess what they said that they are afraid of? And I'm going to read this paragraph. It says, what the catastrophe will precisely be to cause them to run to these hideaways is unclear, but possibilities include a devastating asteroid impact, giant earthquakes, nuclear war, civil war, pandemics, and listen to this, or a zombie invasion, they've been watching way too much TV, or the second coming. It literally says that, John, in this article out of the UK. The liberal leftists are building bolt holes, they're called, to the bolt away to get into a hole in the ground, holes in the ground and in the caves to hide from the second coming of Jesus Christ. It literally says that in this mainstream article. And what does Revelation 6 say about those last days? That they will hide themselves in the caves and in the ground, and they will cry out, hide ourselves, rocks fall upon us, for the day of the wrath of God has come. The day of the wrath of the Lamb has come. Oh my gosh, John, we're watching it live out before our eyes. And again, mainstream media writes about this stuff, and they don't even know what they're saying.
It's not fair, keeping score, because you just keep on, ticking off, what we're seeing that was written about so long ago.
Yeah. No, I mean, I could just go on and on. Dozens, I said, are in my book, and so much has happened since then. But I mean, I think about this marking system. Oh my gosh, like you said, I mean, they're already doing it with biometrics, but it's much more insidious than that. And as you said, it's going into the third world. It's going into the jungles. I've got examples in my book of that. And then this whole globally pervasive tracking and spying and technologies and transhumanism and CRISPR-Cas9 and genetic engineering and animal-human hybrids and eternal life technologies. That's all stuff in the headlines now. It was 5 years ago, if we were talking about this, people thought we were nut jobs. 5 years later, headlines are bragging about all of that stuff. And then, of course, Jesus talked about the spirit of Sodom and Gomorrah in the last days. Oh, my word, we're there. He talked about the spirit of the days of Noah. Oh, my word, we're there. Now we have the rise of ISIS, the extinction of Christianity in the Middle East. By the way, that's the headlines of a New York Times article, not some crazy preacher. The re-Islamization of Turkey, the collapse of national borders, unprecedented, I'm trying to get that word out, the Shemitah outpouring that a lot of Christians have kind of, winked at and laughed at. Well, nothing happened on Shemitah. Oh, my gosh. I document in my book it was the most profound time in America's history and in world history concerning prophetic events that piled up, that clustered around that 1 year. And a lot of it's still going on. And on top of all of that, Orthodox Jews are coming to Christ, Muslims are coming to Christ in record numbers. I'm telling you, John, we're living in prophetic times.
And because of the recent election, we could be seeing support for the new temple.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be back after this break. I told you it was going to be a fast one. This is John Regan with Pastor Carl Gallups. We're down to our final 5 minutes. where would you like to go in the time we have left?
Well, brother, wherever you want to go. While we're at break, I was just looking at this incredulous article again out of the Daily Mail, and I was looking. There's a picture in it, for dramatic effects of a nuclear bomb going off and the mushroom cloud of fire. I mean, it's a very dramatic picture. In fact, it looks like it might have been CGI created. It's so dramatic. But underneath it is the caption: "Nuclear war is just one of the fears driving the billionaire refugees." This is just so telling, this entire article, because the things they fear, are the things that you and I and people like us for years, 30 years of my life, I've spent preaching the word and warning people of the prophetic times and warning people of the various technological advancements that would be coming our way. And of course, the left has been snickering at people like me and, and you, and calling us names and, we're just complete idiots. But now, even the left, even unbelievers, even people who obviously don't know the word, because of the things that they're saying, they see the same thing. They understand. They understand that something's getting ready to snap. Things are winding down. And so this article goes on to say that tellingly, quote, "The geeks of Silicon Valley appear to be most worried that it will be a struggle between rich and poor in a world economy turned upside down by new technology with them as the main targets." Well, John, that's part of what you talk about, is the world economy turning upside down. New technology, that's what you and I have been talking about, this exponential growth. And then with now the rich are concerned that they're going to be the main targets, so they're going to go hide in the caves and in the hole in the ground because they're afraid that the second coming is on its way, and with it is nuclear war. This is astounding, John. People all over the world sense that something is wrong, and we who are believers, we have the answer. Not only do we know what's wrong, but we know the solution, and we know how to live without fear, and that is, we have not been given a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind in Jesus Christ. God's got this. He's the one that told us all of this was going to happen. He even told us the signs to look for, and now we see that we're living in the most prophetic times that have ever come upon this earth. And I'm encouraging Christians, man, get engaged, stay engaged, love life, enjoy life, plan for the future, because we don't know when the date is, and get on with life. Mow the grass, pay the bills, send your kids to college, save up for retirement, but in the middle of it all, please be aware we're living in profoundly prophetic times, and God has raised us up for such a time as this. John, does that make sense?
Absolutely. I'll say that, the most important thing is to have your spiritual house in order. And then when it comes to everything that's going on, it's not hopeless. But the problem that we have is that the skills that our not too distant ancestors have disappeared. We don't know how to live without electricity and petroleum and this modern supply chain.
Yeah.
And that's why we need that physical preparedness in there as well.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. It's spiritual preparedness, it's physical preparedness, absolutely, and just philosophical preparedness. And of course, that goes with spiritual, and that is you got to get your mind wrapped around the fact that life changes, the world changes, technology changes, and you got to kind of change with it. If you just go through life, la, 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 looking in the sky, denying what's happening around you, you're not even going to be able to interpret the scriptures correctly, much less life itself. So, there are a lot of things that people need to get a grip on, and of course, that's a big part of what your ministry and my ministry is, John, helping them get that grip.
And unfortunately, there's another part of the Bible that talks about God granting them their strong delusion.
Yeah, you're so right. John, thanks for having me. I hear the music. Thank you so much for having me on. I look forward to seeing you in Texas in just a few weeks.
I look forward to that myself. Thank you for being with us.
Sir, God bless you.
Bless you. Remember, class, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.